let's check out the component editor. I can take my skeleton and I can hide it if I like, because you're gonna probably running into the problem where you try to select vertices like that and it's gonna select your skeleton. There's a few different things you can do. You can say that you do not want to be able to select the skeleton by using our masks at the top. So if you click on the joint, you're gonna see that I can't select my joints. Okay, I can still select IK handles and all that good stuff. So I can turn off some of these things up here other than geometry by clicking on them. And when you do that, you're able to say that you want to select some things but not others. Okay, so those are what we call masks. You guys should know that by now. And we can use those masks to allow us to select only the geometry. And this is only because I didn't put everything in layers. Now I have the geometry in layers, and I have apparently the hats in layers because the hats came along with the model. But I didn't put the controllers in layers, and that'd be a good thing to do. So like all of the curves and locators and stuff that we created, put those in a different layer. You could even add the IK handles if you like in the same layer. And at this point, a lot of the times you're going to be locking and hiding some of the attributes for these things. Like the IK handles, you're not going to see those or want to be able to select them because you're either going to be using the controller that you created, controllers that you created, or the joints themselves. You can also make controllers for the joints that appear when you go into forward kinematics mode, so FK mode. For right now, I'm not really too worried about that. I just want to show you guys the component editor. So I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to go up to Window, down to General Editors, and on over to Component Editor. Sorry, I have a little bit of lazy tongue there. Component Editor. I'm going to bring this up so you guys can see it here, and you're going to see that we have a few different things that we have selectable in categories, be it springs and particles, deformers or weighted deformers, rigid skins, blend shape deformers, smooth skins, polygons, advanced polygons, and you're going to see that I'll take this over to the side. It might get cropped from you guys, but I'm going to right click and go to vertex mode, and when I select the vertices for the thumb, for instance, and this is a good tool to use right here, guys. This is like a lasso selection tool in Photoshop, but you're able to designate certain areas you want to select. So if I right click and go to, oops, don't want to do that. Right click and go to vertex, I can select the vertices of the thumb in a certain area, for instance, like the fingertip right here. If I drag a little marquee around that, I have those vertices selected, and the joints are moving the vertices. They are controlling and driving the vertices, okay? That's how the binding process works. So I'm going to come up and bring this component editor up again, and if you forget or forgotten, it's under Window, General Editors, Component Editor. So it's the first one under the General Editors of the Windows menu set. Now, the cool thing is that we have all these tabs up here, and we have a few new ones now because I did select the vertices. It's going to give me some options to what those vertices are being driven by, or what is controlling or working with these vertices. And right now we can see that we have a smooth skin tab. I want to click that tab because that's basically what we're dealing with when we're painting weights for the smooth skin or for the rigid skin, anything like that. Mainly for the smooth skin. We're going to come in here and find the different objects, I guess I should say, that are driving it. So if I select those vertices and I go to the smooth skin, it's basically going to tell me that I have all of these vertices. So here on my left are all of my vertices that I have selected right now. Okay, and that's quite a bit. And you're going to see that there's some under the thumbnail in that. So there is a good amount of vertices there. So this can be quite a job when it comes to it, but this can also really help you. So vertices on this side, and up here are going to be the joints. So where my cursor is going across, these are the joints. Now you can see that our pinky, the right pinky, has some influence. And I'm just going to scroll down and see if I could find that influence. It could be just one little thing, and I'm not actually seeing anything. So this could be on such a minuscule scale, or just a bad display, or I don't know, some type of Maya deal. But what I'm getting at is that the pinky should have no control over this. These vertices should not be controlled by a pinky, right? So the process of this is that we can select this area here, like all of these slots for all of these vertices, and say, well, the pinky should not have any control over any of these vertices that I have selected. So I am going to scroll down, I'll hold shift and click on the bottom, and if I type in 0 and hit enter, generally it will get rid of any weights that were affecting these vertices from that pinky, and you're going to see that my pinky slot or column is gone. So basically it said, alright, you don't want any weight from the pinky on there, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of the weights, and since the weights are gone, under the smooth skin with these selected, these vertices, it's showing that the pinky is no longer controlling or having any control over these vertices. It's not driving them, nothing. Okay, so we don't have to really expect any weird deformations. We also have the ring finger. The thumbs might be okay, but I really only need it for the thumb 2 joint. That's this guy right here. So I can get rid of the thumb 1 as well. And the wrist does not need to be bothering these at all. So as long as I have weights on one object, being the thumb 2, because that's going to be this guy right here. So thumb 1, that's that joint. Thumb 2, and thumb 3 should have nothing as well. Then I just want to get rid of those, and it's really easy to do that because I don't have to paint weights. I can just type in 0 in these columns, and I can do 2 columns at once. So if I select this one and I'm like, the thumb 1 does not need to have any control over these, I will just come down to the bottom, hold down shift and click on that, and whatever value I put in this box, like 0, will take care of that for me of both columns because they were both selected. Also, the wrist is the next thing that I gotta do, and I'll shift click that bottom one, type in 0, and now only my thumb 2 should be affecting this. Okay, I'm gonna do a quick test, which I'll close the component editor, select my move tool, and I can't select my controllers here, so I'm gonna go up here to this, and if I hover over it for a little while, it'll say select curve objects. Since this is a nerved curve, it should allow me to select it now, and since I'm allowed to select it, I can move this, right? Or look, I didn't make a hand controller for this. You guys will have the fingers controller. I didn't do that for this, so what I can do is just select my joint instead. So I turn off the curve selection and I turn on the joint mask. So now I can select the joints. I'll select that one joint, rotate it, rotate this, okay, and I'm going to select the pinky and the ring finger joints, and I'll just shift select these two because it was saying before that they had influence on that part of the thumb. So I'm going to rotate those ones, and if they influence the thumb at all, I would see it kind of move around a little bit, and there's no movement on the tip of the thumb, so it was effective by using the component editor to get rid of any weights or any force that these things were driving those vertices with, and it was a really easy way of going. So that worked for this, and it would work for any part of this. So to do another brief example, I'm going to turn off being able to select the joints. So I'm going to turn that mask off, and I'm going to come over here, select my object, right click and go to vertex mode. Oops. Right click and go to vertex mode, and I'm going to select with my lasso tool here, I can select just this part right here. This is just a for instance. And again, this works the same, so if I am selecting things like that, it's going to select all of those. If I need to add to a selection, I can hold down shift and drag around that, and that's good. If I accidentally got some of this in here, I can hold down control to deselect anything, and now I am able to add to a selection or deselect from a selection. Like, I don't want those ones. So let's do a test. I'll go up to Window, down to General Editors, over to Component Editor, and I'm going to see that this part is affected by some of the spine. I only need parts of the spine really affecting this. So let me minimize that and see on a broader scale. Yeah, I only really need parts of the thighs, controlling this. Maybe a little bit of the hip, the right hip. But if I see anything like knee, or I'm assuming that that spine one for my character is part of the neck because those are some of the only ones that I didn't label. I'm gonna have to fix those. So bad teacher, right? Label your stuff, guys. But I will bring that back up, and I will see that the hips override. Okay, maybe it has some effect on that. I can leave that and just paint those later. The leg calf, that seems a little too low. So I can just take this, and that's the left leg even. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Hold down shift, click, type in 0, hit enter. I don't see it anymore up here. The right leg, calf, I don't need that either. So shift click this whole column, type in 0, get rid of it. Left leg thigh, I don't know if I need the left leg thigh to move and affect that area. So I'm going to get rid of that. If I want to add it, I could always select that joint and add to it. Spine 5 is more where it tees off, and that's going to be something you guys have to decide. Is this going to affect down here a little bit? Oops. I think it would a bit, depending. But for the most part, these three right here and the hips would do it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the spine 5. And again, this is going to be trial and error sometimes, but you guys will start predicting what's going to work and what isn't going to work the more you do this. So just like anything else, it's going to be, the time that you spend on it, how many times you do it, you're going to get faster, better. I don't need the joint 1. We already talked about that. That's the neck. So I get rid of that. And that's just a brief example of how that would work. Now let me see how much that affects it. And I'll hit Control Z, and it actually is not going to bring it back, which is okay. But I could see, is there any other ones? See, hips, right, spine. Okay, there's not really any other ones on this, but if you guys get any weirdness going on there, then you guys can decide whether or not these certain areas are going to be affected by what joints by using the component editor, and that can really, really, really help you out. Okay? So let me do a quick example on the face. Maybe that will give us an idea. I'll right click and go to vertex mode, and I'm going to say, okay, the nose. Not the nose, let's do the eyebrows. Yeah, let's do like the eyebrows at the top of the head. I'll just make a little selection like that. And what I'm looking for is I'm going to go down to the jaw joint right down here, because I haven't painted the weights for that just yet. But I know that if I have the jaw go like open up, I probably don't want like this top part of the head to move. So I'm going to get that part going, and I'm opening my jaw over here, so if you hear any weird noises, I apologize. But I have that selected now, and I'm going to go to the component editor again. So Window, General Editors, Component Editor, and there it is. And I want to see if the jaw joint, and it looks like I didn't label any of these either. So let's see. Well, the head joint should be the only thing affecting the top ones. So it's safe to say that I can get rid of all of these. And that's good for that part. Let me see if I can actually undo that, because I was supposed to show you guys that if I rotate it, okay, if I rotate it, and let me see if I brought it back, that it's going to affect those joints. I mean, those joints are going to affect the head. So let's test it. I'll select this jaw joint, and again I have to come up here and turn on that mask to be able to select it. And if I rotate it, let's see if the head joints are moving at all. For this, I'm going to turn on wireframe on shaded so you guys can see if my geometry is moving at all. Again, that could be a nice little trick that I should have mentioned before, but now you're getting it, so make sure you watch these tutorials. I'm going to rotate this jaw. Yeah, you see that? Wow. So you got to paint the weights on that, because you're going to get that creep factor going on, unless you want the creep factor or a really slop job. But yeah, we don't want that. To show you that we can get rid of a lot of that effect, let's do or redo what I just did. So I'm going to right click and just go to vertex mode, select all these top ones. I know that it shouldn't affect these. It might affect part of the forehead a little bit, because your jaw will affect up through here, and sometimes you'll see like the muscles right here moving around. So it's really up to you guys. You could always paint the slightest bit up here, so I'm not too worried in getting rid of even up to here. Maybe not too much on the eyebrows, but since we have such a heavy load affecting this, I'm just going to be drastic with it and go and select all of this part right here. Okay, I could shift select these, but I think you guys get the idea. So I'm going to come back to this, and I apologize about the hisses. This mic's pretty awesome. So Window General Editors, Component Editor, and I want only the head joint to affect that in this case, right? Yeah, not the neck. So I'm just going to select all these others, type in 0. Oop, I didn't shift select. I must hit Control or something, so be careful with that. And also make sure if you have the caps lock on, if you accidentally hit it, it can give you different results. So you want to make sure that you have caps lock off. Or if anything is acting very weird to you, turn the caps lock off, or make sure that it's turned off. So I got rid of all of the weights there, and you're going to see that if I select that jaw again, I have to enable it, select the jaw again, there we go. Okay, so you're going to be able to have that affect the mouth a little bit differently. Alright, and I did get rid of all the weight from the top, so now it's not affecting the top. Now you're going to have to get a little bit tricky with the way that you paint these ones in, these weights. You could even start adding this guy. I didn't add that one when I was painting or applying my weights, or skinning the character I should say. And if it's going to give you more control, then go ahead and add it in. Okay? But for the most part, I don't need that jaw rotating any of the stuff up here. And now you can see that I have a little better functionality. My mouth's not really opening, but I haven't really made it do so. So it's affecting some of the top parts of this. And if I select some of these, watch, I'll select some of the ones that I thought I selected and maybe didn't. You can use this paint select tool, right click and go to vertex. This paint select is going to be perfect for this. I'm going to hold down B, make it smaller, right? Smaller, smaller, smaller. And I'll make it really tiny. That way I could select these. Now watch, check this out. This is great. I can add, by painting, these other vertices that might be affected by the weights. Okay, see, I accidentally turned caps lock on, and that's a good thing about 2014. I forgot to mention that part, that 2014 will tell you caps lock is on. Okay, so I'm trying to select some of these. I'm not getting the best selection, so go back to manually selecting these. You can undo a selection, or deselection, so I hit Control Z after you saw that I accidentally deselected those. Okay, and there's probably some on the inside that I'm not getting, but this is just to show you guys that I can rotate that jaw, and I can go to my component editor, and I could say I only want the head joint, not the head joint, I would need the jaw, whatever the jaw is, and it looks like I didn't label it, but I can get rid of a lot of the other ones that I'm thinking is affecting this. And let's see here, I'm gonna have to select this again, so let me go back here again. Name your things, guys. Okay, joint 6. So I only want the head joints to work with those vertices. So the head joint being this guy right here, because when this rotates, I would like the jaw to drop. So I'm going to undo that selection, and I'm going to go have everything but the head joint. I mean, everything but the head joint needs to go away. So type in 0 there. You're going to see that it automatically snapped those. Okay, it's a little bit harsh of a snap, but again, you guys can add any weights that you want to affect these vertices. And right now I just said I don't want anything but the head joint, so if I select the head joint, again, I need to come up here, select it like that. It's going to affect all the upper parts. and it takes that little joint right there with it. That's why we set it up that way, okay? But I need to paint the weights in for these other parts to be partially affected, just partially, so that we get the good deformations of this part of the geometry coming down, okay? Not this hard thing that we have going on, and definitely not the inner part of the mouth. So see that? That's the inner part of the mouth. That way, if you did see inside of it, it looks as though it's dark, and it's not like this gaping hole that you could see the inside of the geometry of the head, okay? So that's one step that we can take towards doing this. And I do recommend that you guys do use the component editor. It looks like a weird ventriloquist puppet. It's creepy. Maybe I'll keep that. Scare the wife a little bit. Okay, but I think you guys get the idea with the component editor, so we're going to move on. In the next tutorial, I can't talk. In the next tutorial, we're going to do a little bit of blend shaping, because I think that this will take you into your painting weights all across the board, whether you use the component editor or you paint weights. Okay, the fingers might be a little challenging if they're chubbier than this guy's fingers, and if they're closer together. Okay, so some of the stuff you're gonna have to play with, and you really can't get around that. Okay, so let's get into blend shapes.